What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Young Guns podcast. It feels like we're being making videos concerning the Vancouver Canucks all season long, but they're the hottest topic right now in the NHL. And with that being said, Kuzmenko, a guy who is possibly involved in trade rumors, gets an extension, a 2-year extension, signed up until the 2024-2025 season, where he will be paid $5.5 million for each season, respectively, for a total of $11 million within those 2 seasons. And he has a no movement trade clause. And so he's going to be staying with the Vancouver Canucks for another 2 years. He's going to be part of that retool or rebuild that's going on in Vancouver. And there's been a lot of talk that people have been saying, well, now look, they prioritize Kuzmenko and Miller over their captain, Bo Horvat. So it's more than likely that he will be traded. But today we're talking about Kuzmenko's transition to the NHL. And is it comparable to Artemi Panarin of the New York Rangers?
Well, look, first things first with Kuzmenko and the comparisons with Panarin, both of them were undrafted, so that's one thing to take into consideration. The other thing is that Andrei Kuzmenko, when he was signed with Vancouver, wasn't really he was expected to come in and make an impact, and he has done that definitely, but I don't think he was expected to be an elite talent, an elite player. Nobody really knew what to expect out of him. One of the things that I got to say about Kuzmenko is his production numbers are near what Panarin was doing in his first season with Chicago. Is he going to turn into Panarin? I don't know. I don't think so. But in terms of Kuzmenko, I mean, look, he's played well under a circumstance in Vancouver where things haven't really gone their way. It's been a really big shit show in Vancouver. Let's be honest. In terms of the coaching situation, the GM, kind of everything that's been going on in Vancouver. One of the things that I can say about Kuzmenko is that he's kind of overachieved his production a little bit. I'm looking at Jay Fresh's model a little bit, and he's shooting at 25%, which to me, let's be honest, that's kind of unsustainable for any forward in the league. Because shooting at a 25% rate is very tough to do, and to score consistently at that rate is tough to do. But he's been good in all aspects of the game. I think he's a good winger. He's a good middle six guy that can definitely contribute. He's had some chemistry with Elias Pettersson at points this season as well, Bo Horvat as well at times for him as well. The only thing is he hasn't really been productive on the power play for the Canucks, and it's about finding that balance for him. But besides that, I think he's a good player. I'm kind of surprised at the fact that he's got 43 points in 48 games. He's got 21 goals, 22 assists. He's a +4. He's been really good for Vancouver. He really hasn't been an issue. And I think that he's a guy that we could talk about as being underrated in the sense that this is kind of his rookie season. Technically speaking, according to the rules, he's kind of in a Calder consideration just because
Uh, I
technically
heard that he's
speaking.
not.
No, I don't think that I'm saying he's in the Calder consideration points wise. I'm not saying he's gonna win the
Points
Calder,
wise.
but
Okay.
like points wise, he would technically be considered in the Calder consideration because he's the first. It's his first NHL season. But I don't think he wins the Calder in my opinion. It was just something that that came to my attention. But in terms of Kuzmenko, I mean, look, when we're comparing Panarin to where Panarin was at versus Kuzmenko, now again, I don't think he's going to turn into Panarin at all. But just to kind of compare it a little bit, one of the things I can say about Artemi Panarin is that, in his first season, he scored 30 goals, 47 assists, he had 77 points in 80 games played. And, Kuzmenko's kind of at that same pace. He's got 43 points in 48 games. Is Kuzmenko going to reach 77? I don't think so, mainly for the fact that, when Panarin came into a situation in Chicago, he was actually on a very good Chicago team, whereas at Kuzmenko is on a very bad Vancouver team that is most likely going to trade Bo Horvat and potentially Brock Besser when this is all said and done, anyways. So it becomes a little bit of a situation where, yeah, Kuzmenko's overachieving on a bad team. I think he's playing well, but I don't know if this is sustainable for the near future. Now, I want to kind of just talk about his contract quickly. I think 5.5 million for 2 years is a good and reasonable contract to give to a guy who's played well this season. I don't think there's a risk factor to it at all. If he doesn't do well, listen, you only have him for 2 years. If he does well and you're still in a rebuild stage, well, in the second year you can trade him as a rental and get some assets for him. So I think either way, this is a win-win situation for Vancouver. What it does mean though is it means that Bo Horvat's for sure gone, and so that kind of puts that into perspective. And it was one thing that Rick Dollywell had talked about, who covers the Canucks. He basically said that it was between Kuzmenko and Horvat, and it looks like they chose Kuzmenko. Which, listen, you know what? At the end of the day,
Younger, cheaper.
younger, cheaper, but not only that, they're kind of in the Bedard sweepstakes anyways. So for them, they're getting a guy who is getting paid less than Horvat, like Chris said, but not only that, is younger, and you know what, has been productive this season as well. So I'm not saying that he makes a better impact than Bo Horvat, but like at the end of the day, if Vancouver wants to save dollars, it's not a bad idea to do it the way they did. I mean, to be honest, I haven't really watched much of Kuzmenko that much. I haven't really watched Vancouver a whole lot this season, game wise. But in the games that I have watched, he's looked pretty good. I mean, he's been pretty dominant in most games that he's played. In the games against the Habs, in the games that he played against the Habs, he was pretty good. And I like him. I think he makes a lot of big and smart plays. But at the same time, like I said, shooting at 25% is very unsustainable for any player in the NHL. So I don't think that his goal scoring necessarily continues. But look, 20 goals in his first season in the NHL is pretty impressive. So
And look, just looking at his stats right now in his first season in the NHL at 26 years old, 48 games played, 21 goals, 22
yeah,
assists, and 43 points. Panarin in 2016 won the Calder at the age of 24 years old for the Chicago Blackhawks. His cap hit was 812K. So, what bonuses was 2.8 million. So, obviously he was getting paid a lot more. He exceeded expectations. So he obviously got paid that bonus money. But looking at Kuzmenko's contract, signing for 950K his first year, and then his second deal 5.5 million for 2 years, where Panarin signed a 2-year extension as well for 6 million. So it's pretty fair in comparison in terms of the contract, in terms of being two Russian players from the KHL coming to the NHL. Yes, Panarin did blow up and have 77 points in 80 games. And then for the years to come, he's been a 75 to 90 point player. So, I mean, can Kuzmenko reach that level of production? That is yet to be seen. We have yet to see if, a guy like Connor Bedard, gets the opportunity to be drafted by the Vancouver Canucks. Then yes, I could potentially see that happening because Panarin was playing with Patrick Kane, and he has a lot of credit to Panarin being so successful with his time with the Chicago Blackhawks. In terms of the Columbus Blue Jackets, Panarin was the superstar there, but then going to the Rangers, he is the superstar there. But having a guy like Zabinajad, having a guy like Chris Kreider, that obviously helps your production. A guy like Adam Fox in the power play, that's fantastic to have as well. But in terms of his KHL numbers before entering the NHL, Panarin was, up and down, 21 points, 26 points, 5, 18, 40, and 62. In terms of Kuzmenko's points, 15, 25, 31, 33, 37, 53. So, kind of different in terms
the,
of level of
the numbers
production
are
in the
alike,
KHL.
like the numbers are alike, and that's one of the things that I think people need to look at is, look, like, we're not making this video to try to like stir controversy and turn around and go, oh my god, this guy's gonna be the next Panarin. That's not what we're saying. All we're saying is that, and I would want to just reiterate this because I don't want people in the comments going, "Oh my God, you guys think he's going to be the next?" No, at least I don't think so. I don't know if Chris does, but I don't. I don't think that he's going to be the
No,
next
the reason why we're
Panarin.
making this video is because he's the best player out of the KHL coming to the NHL ever since
Yes,
Artemi
that I agree
Panarin
with.
joining the
Yes,
NHL.
that's
These
why.
are two best products from the KHL entering the NHL and having an
Yeah,
immediate impact in
I
the
agree.
NHL. And, in terms of points, kind of similar. In terms of the contract, the first contract that was signed and the bridge deal contract that both players signed, it's almost identical, so
I mean,
that's
look,
why
if
we're making this video to essentially draw the comparisons.
how funny would it be if Kuzmenko ends up putting the same numbers as Panarin and then gets traded at some point too, and ends up doing kind of the same career path as Panarin? That'd be kind of funny,
That would be hilarious. But
but
um, in my opinion, just looking at these two, it's rare nowadays to see players out of the KHL having an immediate impact in the NHL. There's been players that got drafted in the NHL, They played a couple years, they left, they went to the KHL and then came back, and whatever, they've had an impact like Radulov and Kovalchuk, for example. But guys being undrafted, coming straight out of Russia, coming to the NHL and having this level of impact. If Kuzmenko could turn out to be the next Panarin, the Vancouver Canucks have a fantastic player on their hands, especially if they're going to move out guys like Besser and Horvat. They need a younger and immediate impact player, and Kuzmenko is that guy. And he has a really good relationship with Pedersen as well. So I think they're trying to do anything possible to make Pedersen happy, to convince him to stay longer. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it in terms of this video. What do you think?
Yeah, I just one thing I'm curious to say is just because he did really well under Bruce Boudreau. I'm curious to see how he does under Rick Tocchet, and kind of how his game either elevates or declines under Rick Tocchet. That's going to be very interesting because that's one thing that I think when we talk about Kuzmenko, we have to mention is the fact that he played really well under Bruce Boudreau, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate to the same type of production, let's say, with Rick Tocchet, right? So that's something that I'm very curious to see how that's going to go. And so I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how Kuzmenko ends the season and where he ends up in terms of points wise, but not only that, in terms of, what type of player he's going to become moving forward over the next 2 years with Vancouver. But that's something that I think we just need to take note of is that let's see how he does under Tocchet. And if he can keep the same production, then, I think he's the real deal. If he can't, then, well, it's going to be very interesting in terms of, you know, his production to say like, oh yeah, he did well under a certain system, but under Tocchet's system, it doesn't seem to be working. But right now we don't know. It's only been 2 games. So
Yeah, and one thing that was brought to my attention, he is top five in stats on the Vancouver Canucks,
yeah.
and right below him it's Brock Besser, and it's a 13-point difference. So Kuzmenko is a part of that elite company that you could say on the Vancouver Canucks, which includes JT Miller, 44 points, Quinn Hughes, 45 points, Bo Horvat with 54, and Pedersen with 58, and he's tied for second in goals with Pedersen for 21.
Yeah.
The one who leads the team with most goals is Bo Horvat. So if Kuzmenko could continue scoring at this pace, he could potentially, I'm not saying he will win it, potentially be in the conversation for the Rocket Richard Trophy at some point in his career. Not this season, but at some point.
Well,
If he
like if he shoots
continues
at
to
25%, if he shoots at 25% consistently, then yeah, he will be. But like that's unsustainable. It's never
yeah,
gonna. I don't
so
think it's gonna happen.
we'll see what happens in terms of that. But guys, we'd like to hear your thoughts on Kuzmenko's impact on the Vancouver Canucks and his transition from the KHL to the NHL. Can he potentially be somewhat as good as Panarin, or as good, or maybe even better? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below in terms of that comparison. Or do you think he's just going to be a special player in his own right? Guys, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Young Guns podcast.